The journey begins at the narrow gate. The journey, Jesus beckons me to roam. The journey, where the path is straight. The journey takes me home. The journey takes me home.
Welcome to The Journey. Glad you could join us this morning or whatever time of day you might be watching, but it's good to have you with us. Here in The Journey, we talk about our journey. And not just our journey, but how Christ has come into our life, how Christ has joined our journey, and our journey really begins to look like his journey. In the studio with me today, I have somebody whose journey can really be described as tragedy and triumph, or pain and promise. And you'll see as we go through her journey. So with me this morning, I have Brenda Washburn.
Thank you.
So, yeah, glad you're here, Brenda.
Me too.
So many of you, I think maybe all of you know Brenda. How can you not know Brenda? Brenda's our office secretary, and just glad that you're our office secretary.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah, okay. So it's been good getting to go through your journey. It was, well, let me stop talking and let you talk. So begin telling us about this journey of yours.
Well, I was born January 15th, 1958 on a Navy base in Yokosuka, Japan. My dad was a Marine.
Okay, so you're born in Japan.
Yeah.
Huh.
Dual citizenship.
Okay, there you go. Do you speak any Japanese?
Very little.
Okay.
I know Okashi.
Oh.
It's candy.
Oh.
It's always good.
That's a good one to know. Okay.
Mushy mushy.
Okay, so you're born in Japan. Tell us some more.
Well, actually, I was born early, premature baby, 3 months early, and I spent my first 3 months in an incubator. Yeah, so back in 1958, I wasn't done very much, and
yeah,
my mother told me that the corpsman that took care of me used to sing gospel music to me, hold me in his hand. So I think that was my first bit of good music.
Right. Even before you understood, you were hearing
Exactly.
you were hearing about God when you were born.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. So you have an interesting parentage. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my father was, like I said, a Marine. My parents are both from Ogden, Utah.
Okay.
And their families were from Ogden for like 3-4 generations. My great-great-great-grandfather was the 5th president of the Mormon Church, Lorenzo Snow.
Okay.
He's the one that had 7 wives and went to prison. And after sitting in there for a year, they let him go after he said God told him no more polygamy.
Okay.
And my mother's family, they were Masons. My mother was a Mason, was an Eastern Star. So was my grandmother, and my grandfather was a Mason. So I come from this very religious background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit confused religious background.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother, when we were little, decided that you didn't need to go to one church. She was Presbyterian.
Okay.
My dad was a strong non-believer of anything. He was a Marine. That's all he believed.
Right.
Marine Corps.
Right.
So my mother said, let's just take you to whatever churches. You need to experience everything that's out there, and when you're older, you can pick and choose. So that's kind of how I grew up. When I was little, when I was 4 years old was the first time I remember having anything to do with a Bible.
Okay, Yeah, tell me about that.
We were living in San Mateo, California, 4 years old, and I don't remember the minister, but he gave me a Bible. It was my first Bible. I cherished that book. I can remember taking it everywhere with me.
Wow.
Yeah, I loved it.
Wow.
I couldn't read it then, but I loved the book.
Sure, yeah. You knew there was something about it.
Yeah,
Huh.
exactly.
Now, in your early days, you moved a lot.
I did. I've actually lived in 34 states, 3 countries, and I went to 17 schools from kindergarten through high school.
Wow. So you're moving around, you go to all these different schools, you don't really have any roots, but you don't really have any roots spiritually either, because there's no one church or denomination you get connected with, especially your mom saying you just go wherever. Wow.
Sometimes we didn't go, other times we'd be living someplace, say maybe 3 months. And, my mother would say, hey, today we're going to go to the Catholic Church. Okay. I really liked the churches. They were all neat. Some of them were kind of different.
Right.
But I always knew that I had God.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, and you said you always had this idea or knowledge that God was there, and you always spoke to Him and prayed. Yeah.
My dad didn't like prayer in the house, so my sanctuary, my safe place, was my bedroom or the bathroom, and that's clear up until I moved out of the house and after. It's the only place I could pray.
Right.
My dad didn't like to hear it.
You told me a story about when you would pray and your dad didn't want you to pray because you wanted to pray before meals or something or other.
I always said grace.
Yeah.
But Dad said, yeah, he would cross his arms and he'd sit at the table and he'd say, God didn't put this food on the plate. I did. I worked for this. Yeah, you go ahead and you keep praying to something that doesn't exist because science proves that there is no God. But I know better.
Yeah. And you were, let's see, you went to 17 schools from kindergarten through 12th grade. You had said that somewhere around high school you stopped going to church.
There was no place around where our house was. I graduated in Olympia.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
did. And at Capitol. And so I wasn't allowed to have the car on Sundays. I could only drive Monday through Friday.
Really?
So, yeah, that took that away.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So from about 15 on, the minute I started driving at 16, I couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
So.
Right. So at this point, you know about God. You still have that Bible that was given to you when you were 4. You pray. You have this God consciousness kind of thing. But tell us when you received Jesus as Lord and Savior.
Actually, I was 24 years old. I had just gotten married.
Okay.
A lady showed up where I was working. And she was asking for sheets. I worked at Motel 6.
Okay.
She wanted sheets for a dinner at their church. And she asked me if I wanted to go to a Bible study. So I started going to a Bible study. And then I was baptized while I was pregnant with my first daughter.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So 24 is when you received Jesus as Lord and Savior. Yeah.
Yeah, before that I wanted to be a nun, but my father said, no, you can't be a nun. So I
remember you. You said you'd grown up always wanting to be a nun.
I did. I just wanted to live with Jesus. I just wanted to be with him.
Yeah. Well, maybe for Halloween.
That could happen.
So you're married. You're 24. You're married. How Tell us a bit about that.
Well, my husband, his family, his father-in-law was Mormon. So we started going to the Mormon church. And I didn't really, when I got baptized, I didn't believe the doctrine.
Right.
I just wanted to know Jesus more. So it was a great place to be because I got to go to Bible study. I got to be with people who prayed. It was awesome. I got to help, I got to help teach the Bible.
Right.
I didn't understand the King James Version very well.
Right. Well, yeah, understandably so.
Yeah. So I was still confused about a lot of things. But the fellowship was there. And I had people like me.
Right.
And I didn't have a good marriage. So church was what I needed. And because I didn't have a good marriage, I prayed even more. I talked to God even more. And it made me feel better. I could deal with the marriage part as long as I had God. And God had me.
Right.
So I put up with that marriage for 34 years.
Wow. Yeah. We'll get to some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your husband was an Army Ranger.
Yes, he was.
Your dad was a Marine.
Yeah, not a good thing. No.
No.
They don't mix too well.
And I suppose maybe they let them know.
Yes. Yeah. There's too many things that he did.
Yeah.
They
Right.
both did. My dad gave my husband a Marine Corps haircut. And my husband ended up in the brig for 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Oh, my.
Yeah, and they said, "Who did your hair?" And he said, "My father-in-law." Yeah. My dad did things like that a lot.
Well. So then you moved. You guys moved
Yeah.
up to, because he was transferred to Fort Wainwright in Fairbanks.
Correct.
Okay. And you were about 27 at that time.
Correct.
What was life like for you there?
Well, the old saying is, when hell freezes, it does every year in Alaska.
Oh, okay. Well, that kind of tells us, yeah.
I lived in a cabin with no running water.
Oh, wow.
I had to haul water. We had an outhouse. The daughter was 2 years old then,
Oh,
and
boy.
yeah, a 2-year-old looking in an outhouse going, no way,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
you know. But we could get cable.
Yeah, that's so odd to me. Yeah, no running water, no power.
Oh, we had
You
power.
had power. Okay.
We had power.
Just no running water.
Correct.
But you had cable.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird.
Wow.
And then I cooked on the wood stove.
Oh,
So,
really? Wow.
Yeah.
And you said you had to get water how?
About a mile away, there was the pipeline, and there was a little stream that would go through, and there was a spring there. And people would stand in line, and they would fill up these 5-gallon containers with water, and then you'd haul it back home and put it in the garbage cans for your use.
Wow. Wow.
Or you went to the laundromat and you paid to use like a gas pump, and you'd fill up the things for 25 cents.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. You did that for quite a while.
4 years.
Wow. Were you at a church at this time?
Yes, actually, after we had moved up there, we were living with my in-laws,
Okay.
and my father-in-law was arrested one morning, and we ended up homeless. So my husband called the church, and they got us into an apartment. So then we had running water, which
Okay.
was really nice.
Yes. Yes, I guess so. So you're still up in Alaska, but you're in an apartment now. You're not in your in-laws' place. Okay. So what was your family? You had a daughter at this point, did you? Did you have the other one on the way, or what's?
That was the last year that I was up there. I'd
Okay.
actually decided that I was done with my husband. And I came down with my daughter and we visited for the summer. It was 1988. We came and visited here. I came and stayed in the place that I ended up buying in Union. And I told my mom that I was going to go to college and get a travel degree.
Right.
And I'd moved around so much, it just kind of made sense.
Yeah. You know everything about every other place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I went, wow. So I aced it, got all straight A's. I graduated, and I was offered a job in Olympia.
Okay.
So I was going to come back. And 2
Right.
weeks before graduation, I found out that I was very pregnant with my second daughter.
Oh, wow.
So things changed, and I stayed another year. And she was born. And
So you stayed another year up in Alaska? Okay.
yeah, I went back up to go to school because I figured, I'd get my stuff done up there. And
Right.
then I was going to come back down here to Union and live. But that got postponed for a year till 1989 when my daughter was born.
Right. Right. Wow. So 1989. How old are you at this point?
I was 31.
31. Okay. Okay. So you come back down, you have a visit, you have plans. Hello, daughter. You're back up in Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I came back down here, but I didn't come back alone with the two kids. My husband came back down, and so that put the divorce thing out of my mind because I now had a newborn baby.
Right.
And I wasn't going to leave them without a father. So I stayed for another 12 years.
Wow. There's a bit of a God moment you had in the birth of your daughter, your second daughter.
Yeah. She actually came a month and a half early. And after she was born, everybody left. My girlfriend was there, my husband was there. They left, and the doctor came in and he said, we brought you a picture of your daughter. And I said, excuse me? He says, she's not going to make it through the night. And I said, what do you mean? He said, the cord was wrapped around her throat. And when she was born, she was dark blue.
Wow.
And she didn't move. She didn't cry. And so they put her in the neonatal intensive care. And so after everybody left, and he told me this, I called the church. And they sent a couple of elders over, but the doctor in the neonatal area wouldn't let them in. I just wanted her to be prayed and given to Jesus.
Right.
And I didn't touch her because I was afraid that she would die.
Wow.
And so they came in, and it was really weird. I didn't find this out until afterwards, but I guess the doctor got sick. And so he went off to wherever they'd go in the hospital.
Yeah.
And they called in another doctor, and it just so happened he was from our church.
Oh, wow.
And so the elders were standing outside the neonatal area, and he saw them. He says, oh, hi guys, what are you doing here? And he says, we came to more or less give last rites to this baby and give her a name, and
Right.
So he said, no, you can gown up, you can go in. So they actually held her, they anointed her with oil, they came in, prayed with me, and they left.
Yeah.
About an hour later, the doctor who was sick came walking in. He had this kind of weird look on his face. And he said, he scratched his head. And he says, I don't believe in miracles. And I said, okay. That's a nice way to say hi.
Sure.
So he looks over at me and he said, this is all just so weird. I got sick. I laid down. These guys had come in. I wouldn't let them in there. And I guess the other doctor let him in. And your daughter's going to be just fine. I said, excuse me? He says, yeah, she's going to be fine. He says, that little girl's a miracle. Well, she had to be because I was told I could never have any more children. surprise.
Yeah.
And now she was going to make it. And she has lots of moments in her life of miracles. She has MS, and it's not affected her really bad. And when she was 7, she was diagnosed with Arnold-Chiari syndrome. Her brain was turned a little bit.
Right.
And she's never had surgery, and she's just my miracle baby.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
My 31-year-old miracle baby.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah.
They do grow up.
Yes, they do. Well, then you were about 38 that time, 31 when you had her. Right?
Yeah, I was 31 when I had her.
So she miraculously recovers. God is gracious to her, to you, and then you did move back to Washington.
Came back to Union, yeah.
Yeah, in Union, 1989. Okay, so you sold almost everything, but
I wanted out.
Sure. How long you'd been? 14 years in Alaska?
No, just 4 years.
Oh, 4 years in Alaska.
It felt like
yeah.
14.
Right. Okay. So yeah, continue the story from there. You're back in Union.
Yeah, and
okay, sorry.
oh no, that's okay.
No, I was just gonna. I'll let you tell the story.
Well, so my kids were getting a little older, and I had to go to work. And so I started working at Robin Hood. I ran Robin Hood for 16 years. And I had gone to church before I started working there. But things changed in the family setting, and my husband didn't want us to go to church anymore because he was asked to leave.
Okay.
And so...
Asked to leave from the Mormon church?
Yes.
Okay.
So I didn't go anymore. And then things started happening, and Pastor Oliver came, and I met him, and when I could, because I usually worked on Sundays, or whatever was going on, I would go up to the church, and, that was really nice.
Yeah.
There was people that I knew here,
Right.
Right. It was family.
No, that's pretty cool.
And the other things didn't matter anymore, but I got too busy. Life happened.
Okay.
And I was, for many years, the sole breadwinner, so I had to work.
And you're still married at this point?
Yes.
So you ended up here in Union, and you ran Robin Hood for 16 years. Yeah. And then your story gets a little interesting after that.
Yeah. Robin Hood got sold.
Okay.
And the new owner came in, and he brought a man with him who I was told I needed to teach him everything I knew. And I said, no, that's not going to happen. And I went to college to learn hotel motel management.
Yeah, right.
So, no, I'm not teaching him everything.
Right.
And I stayed there for another 3 years, and then I left. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do after leaving Robin Hood after 16 years.
Yeah.
But the gentleman that helped run Robin Hood with me, Jerry McAlpine, he was also my neighbor. And he had become a really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
So he fell in love with Union. He was from Bellingham.
Okay.
And he actually bought the Allen Liquor Store, and he asked me to come and be a partner with him.
Oh, okay.
So that was 2009. So I left Union, and I went to run that liquor store, which was really awesome because then, I actually had days off, not hours off.
Yeah, right.
So that was kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. So you're partnered in the liquor store, running the liquor store, and you had an interesting story in there.
Yeah, I met having the state liquor stores and contract stores. We were a contract store, and so we supplied liquor to the restaurants, and wines to the churches that bought wine and stuff. And I met a wonderful pastor over there named Gary Sherbish. And we would talk. I'd tell him how miserable my marriage was, and we'd talk about my brother, who at the time was in prison.
Right.
And so we got to be awesome friends. You know, it was really nice because he knew a lot of people I did, and you know, he'd come in and he'd buy his wine and he'd leave, and he'd check in every once in a while and just come in and hey, you know. So that was pretty awesome. And then so I ran the store. Everything was going good. You know, I would go to functions at NCCU every once in a while, you know.
Right.
And then the stores changed. The state of Washington got asked, well, people voted, and they closed the liquor stores.
Oh, okay.
So in 2014, our store closed. And I had no clue what I was going to do. I'd been running liquor stores because Robin Hood had a liquor store.
Sure.
So for 21 years, I was running liquor stores.
Yeah, that's what you knew how to do.
It was.
Yeah.
You know, the hotel part was gone by then, but I liked the public. I liked all that. And so there was no jobs around.
Right.
You had 361 stores closed, and you had all these people out of work. So Jerry had sold his house in Union, and he had moved up to Ferndale.
Okay.
And he had bought his second wife's house that he had to pay for from his divorce.
Gotcha.
And she put it up for sale, and he said, you know, I've got this mother-in-law apartment downstairs. And you might like to, he says, you could start new.
Sure.
You know, by then I had been separated for 5 years.
Okay.
My husband was still living at my house.
Wow. Yeah, that's a whole story in itself.
Yeah.
That might be another episode of the
There you
journey.
go, phase 2.
But yeah, because you were wanting to be divorced.
Yeah, and he didn't want it, so,
Right.
you know, what are you going to do?
Right.
So I packed up, and I left my beloved Union, gave my house to my daughter, who was now pregnant, and I had never even been to Ferndale, let alone Bellingham.
Right.
So I moved up there sight unseen.
Of all the places you've moved, you've never been there.
No,
A new place.
exactly, and that's kind of, you know, I could start all over again.
Right.
So I moved. I moved into his mother-in-law apartment. And
Where were you at spiritually these days?
I was very lost. But something always told me that you don't have to worry because God's going to take care of you. He had been doing that so long, and I still had him, and he still had me. But there was a church thing missing. I no longer had those people
Right.
that I needed the fellowship. I needed to live a Christian lifestyle, and I didn't have that.
Right.
And a couple days after I moved up, Jerry's sister had come over to visit, and Jerry had said, you know, Brenda's a Christian. And she was really? And I said, yeah, I need a place to go. And she said, well, you could go with us. And wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I started going to church with her. It was so wonderful. But it was really big.
Okay.
They had like 6 or 7 pastors and junior pastors and classrooms, and they had 3 services.
Wow.
And I mean, it was a huge auditorium, so you really nobody knew who you were.
Right.
But I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
And God had me again.
That's cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was something that had been missing for so long. And I no longer, my parents were both deceased by then. My dad died in 2000, my mother in 2005.
Okay.
I could pray.
Yes.
I could say grace. I was no longer made fun of.
Right.
I didn't have to, a Bible thumper. I could be me.
Yeah.
For the first time in my whole life.
Right.
And it was awesome.
Wow, that's fabulous. This is 2014, right?
Yeah.
Or 15. Yeah. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
So you're living in the mother-in-law apartment. You started going to church with Jerry's sister. And then what happens?
3 months after I moved up there, Jerry had what they call sudden heart death.
Wow.
I came upstairs after taking the dog out and I said, "Hey, would you like breakfast?" And he said, "Yeah, I just have to get up and go to the bathroom and get dressed. I'll be there in a minute." I said, "Okay." And I turned around to walk out the door and he fell over, twisted in the sheets, hit his head on the floor. And he was dead.
Wow.
So I grabbed the phone, I called 911, I put it on speaker, I sat it next to the bed, and I was amazed because I know it was God. God told me to just be calm. And he has helped me like that. I was held up in my store and I was calm. And that's all him. It's all these God moments. And so the phone's sitting there and the operator says, "What's going on?" And I said, "My best friend is dead." And she said, "What happened?" And she says, "You need to do CPR." Well, he was 6'6" and 235 pounds, twisted in the sheets. So I had to pull him down on the floor. He just landed.
Yeah.
And I started CPR. Didn't know CPR,
Sure.
but I gave him CPR.
Wow.
And the EMTs came within 2 minutes.
Wow.
They were down the street at a coffee shop. They had just gone to some extended training.
Wow.
And they were there.
Yeah.
Let him in the door. The fire chief told me, "Don't expect him to come back because this is sudden heart death and only 5% of people ever live through this." And I went, and all I kept thinking of is, now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And they did CPR. They shocked him. They did CPR. They shocked him. Third time the chief hollered, give it all you've got."
Right.
They hit him. He rose about 3 feet on the floor, off the floor, and smacked into the floor, and he took a breath.
Oh, wow.
And he was moaning. He was alive.
Wow. Wow.
They put him on the gurney. They took him. He woke up the next day, and I had called his kids while they were resuscitating him. He had 5 children. So I called the 2 daughters. I said, "Tell your siblings. Meet at the hospital. I don't know if he's going to live." So he wakes up the next morning, and the nurse, he looks around and he goes, "What happened?" And she says, "You were dead." And he says, "What?" She says, "Yeah, she saved your life." I said, "I didn't save his life. The EMTs did." "No, you did." "No, I didn't do it. If anybody did it, it was God."
Yeah.
And he told me for the first time ever that he had loved me for the last 10 years. I asked him, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" He says, "Well, you were married. Why am I going to tell you that?"
Right.
So it felt then like, wow, I have a second chance at more than just him coming back.
Yeah.
And then 9 months later, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
After
After he had this heart attack, he was doing good.
Yeah.
He was losing weight though, and he went to the doctor and they said he had pancreatic cancer.
Wow.
and he started treatment. And 4 months after that, the doctor, we had gone to an alternative doctor, and the doctor said, you know, you've got this neuroendocrine pancreatic cancer, and I've saved people from this. And he was clean. Cancer was gone. It
Wow.
was like a miracle.
Wow.
And so he asked me to marry him. So we got married June 6th, 2016.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And then God or somebody, or I say it's God, Jerry passed away.
Not very long after you were married.
No, it was 3 months and 1 day.
Wow. Wow.
And before he died, he told me to go back to Union where you're loved. And you fall in love again. And I yelled at him and I said, no, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah.
This hurts.
Yes. Yes.
Jerry came to Jesus about 2 weeks before he had passed away. He spent a couple weeks in the hospital before he died. A doctor decided that it was time for him to die. We didn't know where that came from, but that's what happened.
Wow.
And so I planned on our 3rd month anniversary. I was planning a funeral.
Wow. Wow. More tragedy.
Yeah. We had just picked out a house, and we were 3 days from signing on the papers for the house when he passed away.
Wow.
And so I came back to Union.
Right.
And actually, NCCU, one of my friends had asked for help because I didn't have anything. I just paid for a cremation.
Right.
And they took back his Social Security for that month.
Oh, wow.
So I took what we had in the bank, and I had it, and I came back here with nothing. I was homeless.
Wow.
Had just buried my husband. So I came back, but I buried him on Saturday, and the following day I was in NCCU.
Wow.
And I've never left.
Yeah.
And I know that it was God who said, you know, here's where you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he shows me that every day.
And you came back to NCCU, and their doing interim ministry was
Gary Sherbish.
Gary Sherbish. So,
He was standing up at the front, and he was talking, and he kept pointing at me, talking and pointing at me. And after the service, he came over and he gave me a big hug. And he said, "What are you doing here?" So I told him what had
oh
happened.
boy, yeah.
He gave me a big hug. He prayed with me, and he said, "You're going to be okay." I said, "I know that.
Yeah.
I'm always okay."
Yeah. Because you continue to have that abiding sense of God's presence, right?
God always takes care
yeah.
of me.
Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, it's 2016.
September.
September 2016. Yeah. September 25th, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're back in. You go to Allen.
I walked in, so my liquor store, my liquor store was in Allen, in the little strip mall, Allen Center. And I walked into the grocery store, and my husband was a CPA, so he had a lot of clients.
Sure.
I walked in the door, and I went to buy a bottle of water. And James, the owner, says, "How is Jerry?" And I said, "He died 2 weeks ago. I just buried him."
Yeah.
And he said, "No, what are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I need a bottle of water. I'm out looking for a job."
Yeah.
And he said, "You no look for a job. You start tomorrow."
Huh.
So I started 4 doors down from our liquor store at the Allen Market.
Wow.
another God moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. Huh. So you're now working at the Allen Market, and through all of this tragedy, this grief, you go to a counselor.
Yeah, I was having a hard time.
Yeah,
I was crying a lot.
sure.
I'm a singer. And the last time I had sang was when they were taking my husband's body out.
Oh, gracious.
And I sang a song that he always asked me to sing. I sang Nat King Cole's Smile to him as they took him out. And I was never going to sing again. I didn't, but that was my happy.
Sure.
Music was my happy.
Right.
So I walked into BHR one day. I have a friend who is a counselor. Though she couldn't counsel me, she said, "You just got to walk in the door." Well, I walked in the door and I filled out paperwork and I saw a counselor. And they found out that I was homeless. They tried to get me to go to a shelter, but I didn't want to surrender my dog and my cats.
Gotcha.
I would rather be with them. So, it didn't matter where I was staying. I knew God would take care of me. And so I started seeing this counselor. And after a few months, I told her, I said, "Things are really getting weird." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "People keep showing up at my work. And they're telling me that they don't know why they're there. They don't know what's going on, but something told them to come in." So I'd pray with them.
Yeah.
I'd tell them, "Well, I lost somebody too."
Yeah.
So I asked her one day, I said, "Okay, so these people keep asking for my help. What do I have to do what you do?"
Right.
She smiled at me. Her name was Kathleen. She smiled at me. She pulled open the drawer of her desk and she said, "I was hoping you were going to ask me this."
Wow.
And she said, "Seeing as you're a woman, you're homeless, you're widowed, you have all these things." She said, "State of Washington's going to send you to school."
Wow.
I said, "What?"
Yeah.
"We're going to pay for it.
Huh.
We need people like you."
Yeah.
And I went, "Okay."
Yeah.
So I started online. There was a program through WSU.
Okay.
And in January of that following year, which would have been 2017, I guess it was December of 17, I decided that this is it. I wanted this. So I slammed out a year and a half into 3 months online.
Wow.
And then the fourth quarter, you had to actually go to school. So I went to school.
Yeah.
And I'm a licensed, certified peer counselor.
Right.
So and I specialize in grief.
Right. And you lead our grief program here.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is marvelous.
And I love it. When she asked me, "Why do you want to do this?" I said, "Because I don't ever want anybody to feel like I did."
Yeah. Yeah.
And she told me then that it was my belief and my faith that had got me everywhere through there. And that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I started my grief support group, ironically, in my old liquor store. It was still empty.
Oh.
So I held support group in that building, but it felt weird.
Oh yeah, yeah, it would.
Yeah,
definitely.
But hey, I was helping people. It didn't matter.
Yeah. So yeah, you're doing grief counseling now. You're working at the store. People are coming in.
Yeah.
God's bringing them into you. You're praying with them. Now you're a grief support counselor. You start this counseling stuff. So you've had all these tragedies, and here's a triumph, but there's another triumph to come yet, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, March 13th, 6 months after I had lost my husband, this gentleman walked in the store. I thought he was a stalker.
Well, he is kind of.
He walked over, and when Vanessa, the other lady, was in there, she asked him if she could help him, and he said, "No, I want her." And I'm like going, "Yeah, stalker mentality." Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it just happened to be Dan Washburn.
How about that? Huh.
And he came in to buy a lottery ticket. So I got him a lottery ticket, and he said that he was kind of nervous. And I said, "What are you nervous about?" And he says, "I'm a singer." And I said, "Me too." And he says, "Yeah, I'm singing with this band. You know, they're friends of mine, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be singing with this band." And I said, "Nice." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Now, I'm not looking for anybody.
Yeah.
I just lost my husband." He said, "Don't worry. I just left my wife."
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, okay." So, you know, but friends. I
Yeah.
needed friends.
Yeah,
I
sure.
liked friends.
Yes.
But we found out that we both sang on the same internet karaoke site.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was... I'd never met anybody from that site, and I'm going, well, maybe he really is a stalker.
Yeah, right.
And all Vanessa said every time he left was, "Uh-oh." You know, but we started to become friends.
Yeah.
And Dan asked me if I went to church. And I said, "Yes, I go to church over in Union."
Yeah.
I said, "Well, could I go with you sometime?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
This is just something I really liked."
Yes.
You know, wow, now I have a friend who's going to go with me to church.
Right, right.
This is cool.
Yes.
And as they say, the rest is all history.
So you're at a friend's wedding. You got to tell this story.
Yeah. Okay. So my friend Stephanie was getting married, and she wanted to sing at her wedding.
Okay.
So she talked to Dan,
Yeah.
and Dan and her were going to do an Adele song for her wedding. And of course, I've known her for years. She knew my late husband, best friends with my best friend now, Vanessa. So what I didn't know is Gary Sherbish had baptized her,
Wow.
had been her pastor
Yeah.
since she was a little kid.
Okay.
So he's going to be marrying her, but I didn't know this.
Yeah.
So Vanessa and I go, we're going to go to the wedding,
Yes.
and Dan's going to go to the wedding.
Yeah.
And then something happened, and there was no music for the band, you know, for the wedding.
Right.
So Dan, at the wedding, I got my stuff with me. I'll play,
Wow.
you know, because he was going to play this one song for her.
Sure.
And
sure.
she was going to sing.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, she decided she wasn't going to sing.
Oh, okay.
And so we're sitting there, and here comes Gary Sherbish. He's going to marry them. He marries them. And all the girls are going, come on, you need to come up and catch the bouquet. I said, I'm a widow. I'm not going to go catch any bouquet.
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, no, you're single. You go up there. I said, no, I don't want to get married again. I go up there, and I said something, and my hand went up, and the bouquet came, and I looked at Dan, and Dan went backwards into the house.
That's funny.
And I went, what the heck is this? Yeah.
Yep. And so you weren't ever going to get married, and Dan wasn't ever going to get married, but April comes around, 2018.
Correct. And Dan at that time was working on better video things for him singing. So he had talked about getting a new camera and a new setup for his laptop.
Yeah.
So he came walking in to the store one day and looking nice as normal, and wandered in, and had his laptop with him, and it's open, and on top is a camera, and he says he has this experiment that he's doing. And I said, an experiment? And he said, yeah. And next thing I know, he says, come stand over here. And he proposed.
Yeah.
Hi, babe.
How's my sexy man?
I'm just fine. Let's just stand right there.
Far out.
I'm doing an experiment.
Are you?
Uh-huh.
Okay. What is your experiment? You got a camera.
1 year ago, I met you right here
Yes, you did.
in this store.
Yes, you did. And you haven't got lucky and got the lottery yet.
I think I have. And
I don't.
I love you very much.
I love you.
I always mention
Me too. I didn't go nowhere.
that. I know. And so, I want you to marry me.
Of course I will. It's perfect.
I never wanted to get married, but Jerry had told me that God and him were going to send somebody better. And God did just that.
And you and Dan were married in August.
September.
Oh, yes, that's right. September.
We were baptized in
That's right.
August.
Sorry. Yep. September 16th you were married. And-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you were both baptized August 4th,
Correct.
2018.
That was the greatest day of my life.
Wow.
It was a feeling that I will never forget. I felt as if I was being cradled by God himself.
Wow.
It was awesome. And I know that day that in my head I heard, there you go. I told you I'd take care of you.
Wow.
And he has, and he does,
Yeah. Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing knowing your story for you to be able to say that. And because so many people going through the tragedies you went through never get to the triumph of knowing Christ and being able to say, I'm thankful for what God has done.
I am thankful for every good, bad, and indifferent thing that's ever happened in my life. And I thank him. I never got mad at him when Jerry died. I said, I just don't understand why.
Yeah.
And I don't have to understand why. I know
Sure.
why. You can't be a grief counselor unless you've experienced grief.
True.
And there was so many things dealing with my husband's death. His children took everything. I can help people that are homeless. I can help people, because if you don't experience it, you can't be a very good counselor.
Right. Because you've gone through it. Yeah. Looking back, maybe you said them already, maybe not. Are there any, what are the faith lessons you want to leave us with?
That God always listens. And that when you ask for something, you may not get it. And the reason is you can't ever be angry at God because he's got a plan. You don't know what it is. You don't have to know what it is. You just have to listen. I just wish that I could have listened to him years ago. But then that wasn't part of his plan.
Sure.
His plan was for me to go through every single thing I have my whole life because that's made Brenda Washburn who she is. And I couldn't have compassion for people if I hadn't have been hurt.
Yeah.
I wouldn't understand any of that.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for everything he never answered.
Wow. Wow. Say that statement again. That's powerful.
I am thankful for everything that God never did for me.
Wow. Yeah.
I've asked for things.
Yeah.
He said, no, you don't need that. Don't worry. I got your back.
Yeah.
I'll hold your hand. Because I know he's held me.
Wow.
I have felt him hold me.
Yeah.
And when I have cried, when I've been alone, when I haven't had anything.
Yeah.
He's always there.
Wow.
And I know that.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
And the minute you walked into that church, there's so many things that I have learned. I thank you for every lesson that you've ever done, because they're all straight from the Bible, and that's what we need. And you've taught me, don't take anything away, don't add anything to it. We just have to listen and learn. And he's teaching us all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want everybody to know, God's there for you. He's there for all of us. He's the best father anybody could have.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting some goosebumps. I really am.
It's a God moment.
Yes, it is. It is. Wow. You have some scripture you wanted to read.
I do. Isaiah 12, Song of Praise. In that day you will say, I will praise you, Lord. Although you were angry with me, your anger has turned away, and you have comforted me. Surely God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. The Lord himself is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. With joy you will draw water from the wells of salvation. And in that day you will say, give praise to the Lord. Proclaim his name. Make known among the nations what he has done. And proclaim that his name is exalted. Sing to the Lord, for he has done glorious things. Let this be known to all the world. Shout aloud and sing for joy, people of Zion. For great is the Holy One of Israel among you.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Amen.
Brenda, thank you.
Thank you.
One last question. You know what it is. You've had quite a journey with Christ. Has it been worth it?
Every single step. Yeah. Every good, bad, and indifferent thing has been worth it. Yeah. And I'm excited to see what he's going to throw at me next.
Yeah. Well, the journey continues, so
it does.
Yeah.
For a lifetime.
Yeah. It's been a joy to not only spend this time with you, but our time together when we got together to talk about this, but also just a joy to have you in the office.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just such a wonderful place to when I come into the office to open the door and there's Brenda and she's smiling and she's pleasant and you thank
and
you.
It took a while to get there.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, because I was afraid.
Yeah.
I was afraid that I would lose those people that I was helping at the store.
Yes.
And it hasn't changed.
No, they found you.
They still find me.
Yes. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
It's all God.
Yeah.
It's a God moment.
It is a God moment. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Let's close our time with prayer.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, let's do it. God in heaven, we thank you for you just being part of our journey, for you breaking into our world.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesus, that you love us. Thank you how much you poured your grace and mercy upon Brenda. God, that you are always there in the tragedy and the triumph, in the pain and with the promise. Thank you, O God, for just walking Brenda through life. And God, the journey's not done yet. You have plans and promises for Brenda yet. And so, God, I pray that you would continue to just continue to pour yourself out upon her and continue to strengthen her and use her for the grief support. And God, continue to use her as she works in the church office and as she's a friend to so many. God, I thank you for her. God, continue, bless her, just pour your love out upon her. I ask this and I pray it in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, again, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Hope this has been helpful. And again, as always, if you've heard something that makes you say, hey, I need to find out more, don't hesitate to call us. We would love to talk to you. And if you call the church office, well, you'd be calling Brenda first.
Yeah,
So,
very good.
thank you. And may God bless you abundantly this day.
The journey begins at the narrow gate. The journey, Jesus beckons me to roam. The journey, where the path is straight. The journey takes me home. The journey takes me home.